What's going on, fight fans and degenerates alike? We are Fight Night here to discuss UFC San Diego here with Emperor G, JewJitsuDan, and myself. Guys, just to start off, we hit big on that over 1.5 last week on the Hill Santos fight. That was the conviction play of the week from all of us. That was a light bulb effect play from all of us. So just wanted to start that off on a positive note there. I mean, we got some fights to break into this one. And I do want to announce we do have a special guest today, and that is Liam Picks Fights. You guys might know him from Twitter. You might know him from Action Network as well, one of the new Knights of Degen affiliates that we just signed a partnership with. So I'd like to welcome on Liam here to this fight stream and help us cap UFC San Diego. Liam, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Excited to break down the fights and very grateful for the opportunity. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. I mean, I know my boy Kevin's very excited to get you on, and we're happy we made it here eventually. As you guys could probably tell, a little change of scenery from me here. No guitar in the background. We got bedroom locks all day today, so hopefully that brings some good juju. But guys, we got an interesting card ahead of us. I'm not going to call it a great card, right? But it's definitely an interesting one, especially from a betting perspective here. I mean, obviously headlined by Chito Vera versus Dominic Cruz, and it's an interesting fight because Dominic Cruz, one of the legends of the sport, bantamweight legend, and then you see the rapid rise of Chito Vera coming into this one. We all saw what he did to Rob Font his last time out. I best explained it, I think I put it best that it looked like he got to use blunt objects in that fight against Rob Font by the time, the fight was all said and done. But enough of me rambling on here. We might as well get into the card. We got Bruno Silva versus Gerald GM3 Mearshart to start us off. Kev, I'm going to let you break this one down, getting into it. It's an interesting matchup here, right? We got someone with heavy hands like Silva against someone that could end the fight at any given moment with a submission in Mearshart. So where are you leaning in this one?
Yeah, man. So before I hop in, wanted to give two brief shout outs. Number one, Mr. JewJitsuDan coming in with the clean sweep last week.
How could I forget?
I mean, yeah, you got to mention it because the man was definitely due. It was, a few weeks in, it was like, man, it was just that moment where he's going to have a big night, and that was it. And we're just going to continue to build. And then shout out to you, Matt. You're sounding awfully crisp on this fine morning with that beautiful mic of yours. So
I feel good. I've had the mic the whole time. I just was on the wrong computer. I couldn't hook it up. That's why, change of scenery. Figured I'd give you guys some good audio.
Right. And the lighting, man, you're looking awfully fine. So just super excited.
I got my UFC Long Island t-shirt on too.
There it is. There it is. This is going to be good destiny then. So listen, guys, we all know both guys bring to the table, right? I mean, Mearshart, he's an absolute wizard on the ground. The submissions are off the charts, and it's a wide array of them too, the rear naked chokes, the guillotine, the anacondas, the Kimuras, the arm triangles. Like the man just knows how to get it done in the submission game. And, I have a ton of respect for the man. He is 9-7 in the UFC. So he's had his ups and downs. It is worth noting though, that, out of his 34 wins, 26 are by submission. Like that's just off the chain. So I do have a lot of respect for Mearshart. The line right now, last I looked, was around like the -280 range, Matt?
-285 on DraftKings. Come back on Mearshart +240.
And I think that's pretty fair, man. I mean, you look at Silva, man. I mean, he's a pure knockout artist. He stood with Alex Pereira for 3 rounds, and in some of those rounds, man, he was pouring it on himself, man. He was standing toe to toe with a man who, is going to have a shot at the belt here in a few months. So have a lot of respect for both guys, but it just seems like Silva has that power, man. It's with this fight, it's really who's going to find the finish first. And that's what it just feels like it's going to come down to. Really hard to envision a fight where this goes the full 15, just given the dangerousness of both guys, right? I mean, both guys just have their tools and are able to execute. So, a lot of respect for both guys. Of course, Bruno Silva's 3-1 in the UFC. So, he's kind of on this semi-rise, and this is a big fight from here where, maybe he can get a, top 10 guy. But going to be a fun one. I expect a lot of fireworks, a lot of action here, and no strong leans, just given the value. Like my play, I feel like Silva's probably going to knock him out, but not a big fan of the line, just given Mearshart's veteran style, and he's kind of been there for a while. So, and he has a pretty solid IQ for what it's worth. So, I'll toss it off to Dan. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those fights where you kind of know what to expect. I mean, Silva, to his credit, last fight, he looked good against a guy that's very tough to look good against, right? Alex Pereira, it's very tough to, he was able to go back and forth. He was able to eat some shots, got dropped, but I would say he left that fight. Most people thought he was going to get flatlined there, right? And he was able to survive the 3 rounds. So kudos to him. And Silva, what I like about this guy, the guy is durable. The guy has, concrete in his hands. We know that he carries that power into the third round, right? In that fight with Sanchez, he just kept getting taken down, and until Sanchez just had no more gas in the tank, right? Then you just kind of let it rip. I think that, Mearshart seems like this guy's always an underdog in every one of his fights. He's well-rounded, good grappling. I think it's going to be tough to submit Silva here. And, looking by his record, Silva has been submitted a number of times. I just think that, his wrestling is what's going to, I think, hinder him a little bit. I don't think he's going to have the kind of success that Sanchez had in taking Silva down. I think the line's about right here. I like Silva by knockout. It's, I'm not trying to overthink this one. Liam, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I mean, biased disclosure up front. Gerald Mearshart's one of my absolute favorite fighters. I've cashed so many Gerald Mearshart tickets over the years, and
absolutely.
At the casino, live in person, getting deaths there after deaths there, as Mahmoud Muradov tickets are just lighting on fire in people's pockets, and I'm celebrating my Gerald Mearshart inside the distance. Now, that being said, this is a tough matchup, right? Because Bruno is somebody I've been high on, and I've been cashing tickets on Bruno in the UFC as well. I thought against Andrew Sanchez, I basically called that fight to a T. You can go back and find the analysis. I was like, yes, Bruno Silva is going to lose the minutes of this fight, but eventually Andrew Sanchez collapses in the third round every time. He's not finishing Bruno, and this is a little bit different because Gerald's typically the guy who's waiting to catch you in round 3, when you start to break. Or he's trying to, surprise guys. He throws nasty kicks to the body. He will stand there and wing, straight punches with somebody who's throwing hooks. And normally he lands them, at a decent rate. The problem is he's there to be hit. And Bruno Silva is not a guy you want to get hit by. So I think logic would dictate Bruno Silva should win the fight. He's going to land heavy shots on Gerald. Gerald has been knocked out before. Granted, you look at the guys that knocked him out. It was Ian Heinisch, who has some power. It was just a good connection by him, just caught him solid. And then he fought Khamzat like a month later. Like, it was just a completely ridiculous turnaround time. So he got starched there too. Probably never should have taken that fight. But I think that as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't have like a god-awful chin. He's just easy to hit. And that's a problem against Bruno. But I do think that Bruno's given up advantageous grappling positions in every fight so far in the UFC, and none of those guys are sniffing the grappling of Gerald. So for me, this is the best guy he's fought in the UFC in terms of long-term proven UFC success. And for that reason, I'm not going to lay the chalk with Bruno at -3XX this weekend. Probably not going to take the shot on Gerald either. If anything, Gerald by sub +600. I think fight doesn't go the distance. Either way, both these guys, prolific finishers.
Do you think Gerald, has an easier time to take him down than Sanchez? I don't think so. That's why I'm curious.
No, Sanchez is like a national champion wrestler. Yeah, exactly. What's he going to do with his takedowns? That's really like the fatal flaw in Andrew Sanchez's game. He spent all his energy wrestling and didn't know how to fight anybody. I think that Gerald, he does mix in all his skills. So he'll try and kick you in the body. When you grab a hold of his leg, then he'll try and jump on a guillotine or something. Like, he's just more tricky with his grappling entries, I think. And if he takes the back like Wellington Turman, I do expect he can make him pay better than somebody like Wellington. I think that he's had the benefit of like every guy he has survived the grappling exchange. The other guy was way more gassed and then he just nuked him. I do think that Gerald has a good gas tank.
Yeah, and to back up your point there, I mean, you mentioned that Mearshart's going to lose the minutes, right, and then eventually wind up getting you a submission at some point. And it's funny because it's like Silva is the same exact fighter, except he does it with striking, right? He's going to lose all the minutes until he's no longer losing. Then the fight's over in an instant. I mean, like you just mentioned, the Wellington Turman fight, Turman was on his back for majority of the fight there. He just happened to get a little bit too high on his body lock, slipped off, and then the rest was history there. Once he landed 2 strikes from the ground, Silva did. That was over. Same thing with Andrew Sanchez. When it got late into that third round, he wound up knocking him out as well. And even Jordan Wright, I mean, Bruno Silva was getting hit there a little bit in the beginning, then he landed one of his own, and it changed the entire dynamic of that fight. So it's kind of funny to see the dichotomy of these two, yet they're so similar when it comes to fighting styles. But I do agree that, you're better off playing this one to go under 2.5 at -280 than laying that chalk at -285 on Bruno Silva here, just because both guys do have a direct path to victory. And Dan, we spoke about this the other day in our group chat. I was shocked to find out Bruno Silva was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? I mean, you look at the record, right? I mean, it's 0-5 in the subcategory with 5 losses by sub. And then you look, he hasn't been submitted in the last 5 or 6 years. I think last time he got submitted was in 2016. And we were talking, you know, I was doing a deep dive on his Instagram. I was like, what belt is this guy? Like, how did he progress? And I think I saw in like 2018 or something like that, he was a purple belt. And then you can see now that he is a black belt. So he's clearly been working on the jiu-jitsu there. Is it enough, though, to withstand the onslaught of submission attempts that Gerald Meerschaert's going to throw? That's the question here, right? It's almost like we're going back to this game that we sort of play every week where we're kind of playing guessing games. Which one's going to happen? And at the end of the day, I feel like both have a similar shot of happening. So if that's the case, you're more inclined to take the Gerald Meerschaert side. But at the same point, you got to think, like, his time's done. Like, how many plus 250, plus 300 tickets is this guy going to cash in the last 2 or so years? But, you know, I do struggle with getting to Bruno Silva at minus 285. So with that being said, I'm going to revert back to my first point. I think the under 2.5 at minus 280 is a far better play here. My thought process.
Yeah. I think we see I think we see maybe Silva pull out some tricks in the grappling bag. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, like I was mentioning to you when we were talking about the black belt thing. That a belt only covers 2 inches of your ass, man. You got to cover the other 98%. It's I think Silva is he can grapple. I think defensively he should be able to, I think, hold off the onslaught. I think Meerschaert gets on his back early, it'll be another story. Both guys drive. I think once this gets into the later rounds, it's going to be tough to keep hold of them. But I like that call in the under as well. I actually sprinkled a little bit on Silva by knockout. But yeah, no, I like the under here as well.
Yeah, and even the under, just to relate it back to his last fight, Bruno Silva against Alex Pereira, that under 2.5 was lined at minus 420 in that one. So to get it at minus 280 against someone who, is equally a finisher on the other side, and Gerald Meerschaert, just a different path to it, I think you're getting a great number there.
And much easier to finish in Gerald Meerschaert.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
due respect. I love the guy, but, sometimes he gets caught on the chin, and that's the end of the fight.
Exactly. This is one of those ones that could just end whenever, someone decides to, throw that slick submission or punch out. But, no time spent on this fight any further. Let's move on to the next one. It's funny enough, we actually broke this one down a few weeks ago, right? And they rescheduled it to this card here. Priscilla Cachoeira versus Ariana Lipski. Lipski right now is minus 190. The comeback on Cachoeira plus 160 here. Emperor G, you change your mind at all from the last time we spoke about this fight? Or are you kind of on the same path here?
Yeah, no, nothing has really changed, man. I mean, both ladies are extraordinarily hittable. I've gone on this whole tangent of the whole queen of violence. I just at 3-4 in the UFC, I have a tough time giving her that nickname. Cachoeira, right? She's absorbing 7.91 strikes per minute. I mean, that's got to be some of the most in UFC history potentially. I'd have to go in the research, but it just seems like both ladies are just going to be there to stand and bang, and it's really hard to find a lean here. I just don't. I think that if there is a grappling exchange, it's probably going to be Lipski initiating that. But, I'm just not high on any of these ladies. Matt, I know you're the women's MMA master, but, for me, I just have a tough time laying any type of money on two punching bags. And that's just how it is. Both ladies really aren't that technical, really no defense. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a finish here. So it's going to be a fun fight to watch. Don't get me wrong. Both ladies aren't going to come out here to just kind of lollygag. They're going to be swinging right off the gate. So I definitely expect violence in this one, but no reason to force anything in this spot.
It's a tough spot. I mean, it's, Lipski, she's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster. Queen of violence, whatever, Cachoeira, she had probably the hardest first fight in the UFC that you could think of. She just got dismantled by Shevchenko, and then she's, credit to her, she's kind of rallied. She's had some good wins. That win against Gina Mazzani was pretty damn impressive, I gotta say. She came back, finished it in the last 10 seconds. She was getting out grappled for the majority of that fight, and that's really where I guess the worry I have for this one is. I think if Lipski can get it to the ground, there's a clear advantage there. But Lipski isn't the most physical. I definitely put the physicality on the Cachoeira side here. Both girls have gotten finished. I don't really have a strong lean. I mean, I'll probably, for me, it's dog or pass. I'll probably take Cachoeira. But it'll be a very small play. I mean, I don't see how you lay -190 on Lipsky here.
Yeah, Liam, what do you think about this one?
I mean, this isn't a very inspiring offering from the UFC, especially on the main card here. I think it was supposed to be on the prelims last week, but either way, they were kind of a little bit strapped for fights for UFC San Diego, so they're like, yeah, let's move this one a week back. And frankly, these are the fights I hate betting on. Reason being, bookmaker just got all the information in the world, right? Where are you going to bet? What time? How much? And now they get to re-give you the lines, right? So I do think it's interesting that you're seeing, like a maybe 20, 30, 40 cent move towards the Lipsky side. What does that tell you? It tells me that she's probably the side, and they don't want you to play her. So they want you to play Cachoeira. They want to give you a better number, entice you to come back on the underdog here. But truthfully, Lipsky's 5 years younger. All the stats I'm talking about, from striking metrics to grappling metrics, say she should win this fight. That's the truth. Cachoeira is not very good at fighting. But what she is good at is being tough and coming forward and throwing, shots. So I had described it on my show as, if it comes down to who's tougher and who wants it badder, maybe Cachoeira gets the job done. But if it in any way comes down to who's better at fighting, I think Lipsky is going to be clearly better at fighting. So for me, Ariane Lipsky is the pick, but not inspired to bet on her.
Yeah, and we see this happen time and time again, like you mentioned, with the fight getting rescheduled. These bookmakers gather all this data. The one that really comes to mind is that Petr Yan versus Sterling rematch, right? We just saw all that action came in on Yan, and it wound up blowing the lineup so big to a point where you had to take the Sterling side if you were going to bet that fight at all. But
those New York boys had to teach them how to wrestle. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Just a little bit of a warning there. Everybody tells you about the Russians, but they don't tell you them New York boys know how to wrestle too.
Absolutely. For New York, that's a great champion to have right now. He actually got booed a little bit at UFC Long Island when they showed him when I was there. I was a little bit upset by that. I cheered him on, though, so that's all that matters. But, it's a tough one to get to here, right? Because I mentioned this last time we broke this down, that Lipsky showed a little bit of maturity her last time out, right? She was willing to initiate the grappling, willing to take this fight to her opponent's weaknesses, right? And just pretty much dominate in a realm of the fight there. And, if she decides to take that path here, I don't see a way that Cachoeira can necessarily get this win off, because we see that hole in her game on the mats is just so wide, and she hasn't seemed to close it at 33 years old. It's a hard, gap to close to not, come up with anything better to say there. But I just think that she has that death touch, especially for women's flyweight, right? She could touch you at any point and put you out. Lipsky has shown that she will stand and bang. She gets a little bit reckless in her exchanges because she wants to land some of her own. So it's one of those scenarios where I think if one of them land early and they get mad at each other, they could wind up standing and banging, and Cachoeira could eventually land that blow. But as a Cachoeira backer, you're getting her at like +160, and you're landing on that one sole path to victory being a good punch that lands. It's not wide enough for my liking. And you mentioned, Kev, I typically like to hone in on these women MMA fights. I mean, last week, Maria Bueno Silva, that was just the easiest dog money of the night, even though they made us sweat for it a little bit there with the tap or no tap. But, this is a tough spot. I initially liked the under in this one, right, at +140 at 2.5. But the more I think about it, if Lipsky is the side, it's more likely going to be a lay and pray type of approach where she's going to, just gather minutes, get points on her side, and just take this one to the judges. So I'm leaning off that one. I don't necessarily have a play in this one. I don't like laying that -195 on Lipsky, just being that Cachoeira could catch you, but at the same rate, that over-under is tricky as well. So this is just one I'm definitely staying away from.
Yeah, and I mentioned this last week when we were breaking this down. Of course, when Cachoeira fought Jiyeon Kim, mind you, one of the bigger robbers of the year, Cachoeira absorbed, 170 significant strikes, and we all saw what her face looked like after that fight. And, to some, I feel like, oh my God, 5.5 months is so long ago. But in reality, when you take that sort of damage and get that smashed up looking like a tomato can, I mean, I think it's going to play dividends in this fight. Like, I really do. I think in this first round, if Lipsky's finding her spots, we're going to see Cachoeira going into the second, with a face that's already compromised. So I think just something to keep in mind, for those, looking to approach this fight is that scar tissue is going to be there. It's not a long layoff of just 5.5 months. And like you said, Matt, being at 33 years old, I think she's at that age where, of course that scar tissue is continuing to build. So Just a big fade all around, but no doubt should be action packed here.
Hey, they don't call her the zombie girl for nothing though, Kev. You know, maybe a little Darren Elkins type. The fight doesn't start until she starts bleeding. But you know, I think that's enough on that fight there. I mean, none of us really have a conviction in it, so we might as well move on to this next one. A line I was a little bit, you know, surprised to see here. You got Azamat Mirzakhanov at -155. The comeback on Devin Clark, currently sitting at +130. Devin Clark, his last fight took place up at heavyweight against William Knight, moving back down to light heavyweight here against Mirzakhanov, who, you know, is pretty small for this weight class. I think he mentioned it during his media day interview that he just, you know, he wants to be more active. That's why he doesn't fight down at middleweight. So, you know, it's an interesting matchup here because personally, I'm not too high on Devin Clark. I mean, I don't necessarily think he does anything great. I know he got a big knockout win his last time out, but you know, you got to look at the level of competition, the weight class as well. William Knight is who he knocked out at heavyweight, a weight class that neither really has fallen off. I think William Knight is staying there now. But, you know, look at Devin Clark, the rest of his fights. I mean, Anthony Smith, I think, knocked his teeth out, if that's the correct fight I'm thinking of, right? And he wound up getting submitted there. And I just don't see what he does in the striking department. I think he's easy to hit. He's pretty slow, I think, especially for 205. I think he looked a little bit quicker up at heavyweight there. But I struggle with seeing how he necessarily gets a victory in this part. I mean, yeah, he could get takedowns, right? But he doesn't necessarily do much with those takedowns, I don't think. And Mirzakhanov actually has sneaky grappling. I mean, looking at some of his regional tape, you know, he actually went and initiated the grappling exchanges, tried showing off some of his moves there. I think he has a win by neck crank or something like that. I know his favorite move, he said, is the Kimura too. But I just think Mirzakhanov, you know, his last time out wasn't the Mirzakhanov we're going to see this time out. I think that, you know, going against a southpaw there in that spot kind of threw him for a loop because he's a southpaw there in his own right. And he just seemed, you could tell that he was hesitant to get in. He was respecting the power of his opponent. And I don't think he necessarily has that issue here. I mean, Clark is an orthodox fighter. As I mentioned, he's slow and he's easy to hit. And Mirzakhanov is very, very explosive. If he can get his shots off and hits you with it, he hits very clean. So, you know, I think he does a good job of staying light too. A lot of people are going to knock on his durability and his gas tank just from what they saw in his last time out. But you have to remember, that's the guy's UFC debut. He was going against a pretty decent fighter there, a strong fighter who was dangerous in his own right. And, you know, at -155, I like this line here. I thought it was going to be a little bit wider just because of the fade on Devin Clark. But I guess that knockout win is holding some weight for some people. But if you guys are with me or disagree, feel free to jump in and let me know.
Yeah, no, I like that. You know, I have a tough time betting on fighters that I kind of identify a bit of a mental lapse, and Devin Clark kind of fits that mold. You know, you kind of don't really know what you get with this guy until you see him fight. Sometimes he comes in and, you know, you see kind of glimpses of greatness, right? I mean, the guy has great wrestling. You know, he likes to sort of bull rush you with the striking into the clinch, and credit to him. I mean, the guy has some slick transitions, you know, to get the takedown. And we've seen him, you know, out grapple guys, and we've also seen him kind of get caught in like weird rear naked chokes from Jan Blachowicz. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, he's looking really good until, you know, he messes up. And again, maybe that's like a mental thing for him. But, you know, for me, when I'm trying to handicap fights, I'm looking for any edge. And fighting is such a mental sport that when you come across a guy that, you know, you kind of don't know what you're going to get until the cage door shuts, it's tough for me to lay money on him, even at a dog price. And you know, what I saw in Mirzakhanov in his last fight, you know, he was able to rally in the third round and get that very impressive knockout. You know, his opponent, you know, up until then had been a you know, pretty durable guy. I know he just got knocked out in his last fight as well, but you know, I you know, we can kind of credit some of that maybe to some UFC debut jitters, right? I mean, it's not sort of out of the realm of possibility, but 11-0, you know, the guy is great striking. He can grapple. I'm very curious to see how he stands up to Clark's grappling because, you know, you can best believe that is, you know, his path to victory. But yeah, I lean Mirzakhanov here. And truth be told, I mean, I kind of think we see another Devin Clark choke show, right? I think he kind of puts himself in a bad spot, and you know, Mirzakhanov is a killer, man. I feel like when he smells blood, he will get in there and finish the job.
Yeah, and he seems to always get his head wrapped up in every fight, right? Devin Clark, he'll sink himself into chokes almost willingly.
Yeah.
You said it really good, Matt. Like Devin Clark, he's not great anywhere. I mean, yeah, he's got, there's a few knockouts on his record, but I don't think that he really has that significant power the way he sets things up. He sports a 53% takedown defense. So if Mirzakhanov, thought that he didn't want to stand and bang, I think that if he wanted to, I think he could take this to the mat. I guess I'm just, I understand, Mirzakhanov, had the UFC debut, had the jitters, but the body language you saw in that second round, obviously knocked this guy out in the third, but I don't think that this guy is a cardio machine. I think that feels like it's going to be an early finish or bust for me. Like the Mirzakhanov round 1, round 2, I think is certainly live. But Devin Clark, man, 7-6 in the UFC. He's had his ups and downs. Like you said, Dan, he tends to, not have that IQ on point when he feels like he's getting pieced up. And, it's really hard to back a guy in Devin Clark. You just don't know what you're going to get out of the man. On the Mirzakhanov side, of course he's at 11-0. He trains at this camp in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure how far you are from Fairfield, New Jersey, Matt, but I was looking at like the fighters there. It's like a Russian dominant gym. I was like very intrigued. Like, are they discriminating against any other people other than Russians coming in wanting to fight? I don't know. Just really strange layout there. I was really intrigued by that. But I don't think Mirzakhanov is a striker that sets things up to the T. I don't think that he has the greatest of technical ability. But what he does have is that power and that one knockout punch. And I'm with you guys. I think he's most likely going to knock out Clark here. I think if I'm taking the Mirzakhanov side, I'd feel more comfortable taking that prop. But the money line, it's. But I'm kind of with you, Matt. Like I feel like the line should be around like the -180 range, the -200, just given the inconsistencies we've seen on the Ben Clark side. But this is just one of those spots where maybe Mirzakhanov shows, more wrinkles to his game. Maybe he just seems more composed than his last time out, given that he, already had that first fight in the UFC. But, I don't think his striking is all that impressive. The volume isn't necessarily there, but the power is. And sometimes the power is really all you need in these types of spots. Liam, do you have any edge on this side? Are you kind of with us here at the Mirzakhanov side? Any lean on the underdog?
No, I've backed Azamat Mirzakhanov his last 2 fights, and I feel like this is another winnable fight for him. This one's probably a little bit trickier because Devin Clark's at least going to try and mix it up, wrestle with him a little bit. I don't think that Tafon was very committed to like a wrestling heavy game plan there, but I do think that Tafon brings a lot of physical gifts, a lot of difficult challenges in his own right. Ulberg starched him with the one punch. Left hook. You have to consider maybe our boy Azamat had something to do with that, compromising the chin, the durability a little bit. Also came back pretty quick from that. So I think that's a factor. But yeah, I just look at this guy and he's got plus level skills in a couple different positions. You look regionally, he took down Gudo in a cinch, wrestled him to a decision, former UFC fighter, big guy as well. So he's kind of shown me that he could take guys who are bigger than him and take them down. I think he could probably take down Devin Clark. I think Devin Clark could take him down. I struggle to see him holding him down for extended periods. I think Azamat could work back to his feet. And honestly, in a lot of Devin Clark fights, he struggles to take guys down. Like he'll push him into the cage. He'll level change on him 50 times, but he really doesn't get that many takedowns anyway. And I think that at space, he's a much less comfortable fighter than Azamat Mirzakhanov. And I think that Mirzakhanov is going to be able to measure him with shots. I think he's going to be able to land strikes in the feet. And I would not be surprised if we see him time a Devin Clark entry with one of those jump knees. He's pretty good at that. So yeah, I just think Azamat is too much for him. I think he's a better fighter. And I think that there will be a time to fade Azamat in the future. He's an older prospect for the division, 33 years of age, as the graphics showing there. But I do think that right now his skills are better than Devin Clark. So I think he's going to win the fight.
If there's one thing about Azamat, the man is built like a freaking tank. I mean, you could even make an argument this man.
He's built like a refrigerator. Like he's just an awkward, like, how do you get a hold of the guy,
Right.
He definitely wrestled bears as a kid. That's for sure.
Light heavyweight Beneil Dariush. He's just got a huge back.
Yeah. And it's crazy because he's been at a reach disadvantage almost all of his fights, and that doesn't change here, right? But he just seems to find a way. And I think it's credit to his explosiveness. I mean, you just see some of the combos he throws, the way that he just explodes into those punches is just, really fascinating, especially for someone that's smaller for the division. If something's giving me a little bit of hesitancy on the Mirzakhanov side, it is that, as I mentioned before, Clark did fight at heavyweight his last time out. Mirzakhanov really could cut down to middleweight. So in those wrestling exchanges, there's a chance that Clark could just, outman him a little bit. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but, Mirzakhanov too, he has a sick uppercut. I don't know if you guys saw that fight in the regional scene where he landed that one against the fence and just put the guy out there. So we've seen the flying knee, we've seen the uppercut. I mean, 2 tools to defend those takedown attempts from Devin Clark there. That's all you really need to see here. I'm on Mirzakhanov. I agree with you, Kev. If you want to take a shot at him, knockout in the first round, plus 300, why not?
Wow, plus 300. Okay. I guess that line is kind of there. I honestly would have probably put a line at like 350 to 4, but I think that's still good value. I mean, the majority of Mirzakhanov's fights are ending in the first round, whether it's on the regional scene or not. So, and again, Devin Clark, man, just not a guy that I'm willing to back. The IQ just isn't really there for me, but should be a fun one. I have this weird feeling that if Azamat wanted to, like, just given his stature, I feel like he could potentially make middleweight. But I guess
that's what I'm saying. He really could, but he mentioned he wants to be active, so it's easier for him not to make that big of a cut and just fight at light heavyweight.
Right.
Yeah,
no.
33. That's tough.
Exactly. Yeah.
It would take a lot of commitment, but like you just see the stature, like there's so much fat percentage there for a light heavyweight at that height. Obviously, going to be at a 4-inch reach of disadvantage here, but I'm with you guys. Let's roll. Let's go. Azamat KO. Let's rock.
And I agree with Liam. Azamat wins this one decisively. Next fight, we might have a beautiful fade opportunity there. So I'm going to keep my eye out on that. And, ready to move on to this next fight, boys. Wish me luck with these names because it's a little bit of a struggle. We got Yasmin Jarugui. I think I got that right. I mean, she's Mexican, so I don't think it's pronounced, like that, against Jasmine Lucindo. And, interesting fight for the main card here. I mean, they're both making their UFC debut, 23 years old and 20 years old. I think part of it has to do with Jarugui being from Tijuana. The fight's taking place in San Diego. They wanted to get a fighter from the area on the main card here. And not for nothing, I was watching some of her tape. She's pretty exciting. And you could tell by her fighting style that she fights out of Tijuana too. I don't know if you guys picked up on that too. She's got that Mexican boxing. She's in and she's out. She's pretty quick too. But, not much film. I mean, she's shown to have decent takedown defense on a few of her fights. And, judging off what I've been able to find on Lucindo, that's her whole game plan. She's trying to take you down, trying to get into the mount and just land blows from up top. So it'll be interesting if these officials are similar to the Austin officials, right, where they're standing up the fighters after about 30 seconds on the mat. And if that's the case, you really have to like the favorite in this spot. I think that Jarugi's going off at like minus 200, if I'm not mistaken here, which, definitely a big line for someone making their UFC debut against someone who is also, a relatively unknown. Lucindo, the comeback is plus 170. It's just an interesting one to bet because I haven't seen Jarugi on her back per se, so I don't necessarily know how she's going to deal with that. I'm sure Lucindo is probably going to get a takedown or two in this fight, just judging off how persistent she is in getting those. And on the other side, it's hard to get film on Lucindo's striking and her striking defense. So I really don't know what openings are going to find themselves. But, both girls like to finish. And the over-under here, under 2.5 is at plus 155. The over minus 190. You got to kind of like that over there. I mean, both these women, as I mentioned, on the regional scene, they're getting finishes. But in the main card, both UFC debut, maybe some jitters on both sides. Minus 190 is a pretty decent line to get here on a women's strawweight fight on the over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much of a take on this one, truth be told. I was focusing my time on some of the other spots that I liked on this card. But it's interesting that this is on the main card, and we got two fighters making their debut. But yeah, I think the hometown crowd for Jarugui is definitely going to play a factor here. I think she has the grappling upside. Big fade spot for me. I'm not going to be touching this fight. But I don't know if either of you guys have a better take. Truth be told, besides for like the grappling upside, I didn't really see much in either fighter. So yeah, for me, it's probably a pass.
Man, if there's one thing about Lucindo, could we do a double check on her birth certificate? 20 years old.
Yeah, right. Doesn't look it.
It looks a little fishy to me. Especially looking at that graphic. But yeah, no. I mean, look, both ladies are super young, making their debut. Again, not a lot of tape there to get a good read on this fight. It's one of those things where Lucindo seems like she has more tools, right? She's looking to take this to the mat. She wants to grapple and pound you out. And like for that reason, I feel like it's a dog or pass situation at these lines. Like, you know, both ladies are bona fide finishers. I mean, Jorangui, did I get that? Jorangui?
Good luck.
Close enough.
It doesn't sound Latina, so it's strange. Maybe she derives from another part of the world, but you know, 8-0, you know, 6 knockouts, which is pretty nutty for small ladies in this division. I mean, there's no doubt that this 23-year-old has some power in her fists, you know, whether they're over tomato cans or not. I mean, it's just something you don't see very often, right? A woman in this division, you know, 75% of her finishes by knockout. But then on like the Lucindo side, shoot, you can't, you know, she's still putting people out as well and has that submission game as well. So, you know, it's just one of those things, man. You know, making the UFC debut, I don't hate the over 2.5. But, you know, just given that Lucindo is able to rack up the control time and has that potential, I do lean Lucindo. Just a little.
But she doesn't do much with it.
Right.
And the people she's taken down, I mean, if you're looking at their records and you just watch the way they fight, you know, it's just such low-level competition. It's hard to see that translating to the UFC here. And, you know, with what we've seen from these fights going to the mats, how quickly they stand them up, especially in these places like San Diego where they don't host many fights, it's just a tricky spot, you know.
It is very tricky. Liam, any leans here? Or did you find any tape out the woodworks? Or you find a lean, or what are we thinking?
Yeah, so this isn't a fight that I plan on making a heavy investment in, certainly. I do side with the favorite here after doing my research a little bit. Lucindo seems like somebody that could win UFC fights. She's just very young, and she's probably a lot less physically mature than her opponent. You know, her opponent's got like an 8-pack. I'm not even going to try with the names, guys. I'm good at some names from around the world. This is one I'm going to go with Yasmin and Lucindo. Right,
and they
Lucindo
both have
is the distinguishing
name, right? So it's you can't even
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like one letter off or something. So for me, I think that, you know, I was interested in first at the Lucindo side because, you know, it was a plus EV bet. You know, some of the sharper markets were getting hit on the Lucindo side, so I was like, oh, let me investigate this a little bit. But I didn't love what I saw in the sense that, you know, a lot of her fights were her getting on top of somebody, physically dominating them with the takedowns. I kind of struggle to see her doing that here. She's fighting a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who looks to be a little bit physically stronger than her. They're going to have similar frames. So for me, it's probably the favorite is more likely to win. But do I know if I'm getting an edge? No, there's a little bit too many unknowns. An angle that I have historically tried to keep in mind is like a fighter who's younger with more experience. I like to try and back those people more often than not. But when you have a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old, it's almost like too soon for that to matter, in my opinion. But she has not lost since she was 18 years of age. You know, most of her losses were when she was 17 and before. So I do think that, you know, I'm going to give her that pass on those losses. She does have a win over a UFC fighter, former UFC fighter, Sarah Proto. So she does seem like she's got skills out the box. But the question is, you know, is she physically ready for a fight in the UFC? And the pressure, you know, to go from a regional scene to a fight on a UFC main card, you know, featured bout, third fight from the top. For me, they're probably, you know, setting up somebody who's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more ready for that, you know, shining moment. So I think the favorite's going to win, but Lucindo is probably going to make it a scrap. I wouldn't be surprised if she got a takedown or two early, but can she keep it up? This is her first time at 115. Cutting down from 125, 121 for her former fights. So I think that's a question as well. Does the durability in the gas tank hold up? Because her opponent throws hands, she throws with heat, and I think she's the more comfortable fighter on the feet. So Lucindo is going to need to get this to the ground if she wants to win the fight, and it's not going to be easy because she's got somebody who outranks her. But, you know, a purple belt from Mexico might not have the same level of jiu-jitsu as a blue belt from Brazil. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not sure, but I think it should be a great fight.
I agree. And also, you know what? I'm looking at this fight to go the distance minus 165. I'm probably going to end up taking a stab on that, definitely.
I like that.
But all right, we'll move on to this next one. This is a co-main event, right? I mean, this is a fight that just got booked not too long ago. Nate Landwehr versus David Onama. Onama just coming off a quick turnaround here, right? Going against Armfield his last time out, getting the second round submission victory. The guy's 10-1, all 10 wins by finish. And Nate Landwehr, Nate the Train, is coming into this one, right? Coming off a huge submission win of his own right against Ludovic Klein, who we just saw a few weeks ago put it on Mason Jones in London. So it's a good win in hindsight, right? I mean, that one stacks up very well. I do think Onama has some advantages here wherever the fight goes, but I'm going to let one of you guys kick us off here. Dan, why don't you lead us off on this one?
Yeah, man. As soon as I saw this fight, it kind of caught my eye on the card. I'm a big fan of Onama. I think, he had a tough first fight in the UFC against Mason Jones, where he was heavy underdog, and he made it a very, very competitive fight. And I think, now we're starting to see kind of who he really is. His last couple fights, he's really starting to show out. I think the guy still has a lot of growing to do, but man, he just has all the physical gifts possible. And it's like, if you hear James Krause kind of talk about him, he said something actually really interesting, that, he feels sometimes that Onama kind of plays down to his competition. And I actually kind of like that take. And I can actually see, I see what he means by that. Onama is just that kind of guy that, he'll strike with you, he'll grab with you, but I think just, where he's going to kind of turn the corner is understanding, maybe I don't want to take a couple punches to the face before I initiate the grappling like he did last fight, right? We saw that, his opponent was giving him, a bit of trouble on the feet. And it's almost like as soon as you decide to, I can take this guy down, it's like, well, why don't you just do that from the beginning? I think this fight screams, fight of the night. Nate Landwehr, tough guy, very animated. I always get a kick out of hearing this guy on the mic, man. You never know what he's going to say, but
you kind of hope he wins so he can get on the mic, right?
Oh man, I'm telling you. But listen, one thing for sure is that he seems to be like a killer be killed guy, and fights like that, I love, because you kind of know what to expect, right? I mean, he's all his losses have been by finish in the UFC. And with respect to the fight with Darren Elkins, but again, Elkins is so durable that I kind of chalk that up to that, so I'm not putting too much my bread in sort of that basket. But Onama, man, I love inside the distance here. That was like my first play on the card. I'm pretty sure we're all on that from a Kingspur's perspective, but I think Onama wins this wherever he wants, wherever the fight goes. But my one worry is that, like I said, he kind of plays down to Nate Landwehr a little bit. Landwehr is going to be talking to him. He's going to be getting in his face. And so as long as he can stay measured and kind of keep focused, I think this is Onama's fight to lose.
I'm eager to hear Liam's thoughts, then I'll tail off of him.
Yeah, this is a fight for me that I kind of looked at as a pass from a betting perspective on the top line, just because the line has blown out a little bit. David Onama's last fight closes, I think, like a -175 favorite or so. Or actually, no, not the Armfield fight. Excuse me, the Benitez fight. He closed like a -175 favorite or something. And this is a tricky fight with Nate Landwehr, right? Nate can be finished, but when he's not finished, he tends to make fights pretty competitive. I thought he showed probably his best form to date in the Ludovic Klein fight. So I want to give him that credit. And Ludovic has actually looked good since, right? He's done well. So my question is, how does David Onama handle, the fight if he doesn't get the finish early? Because I think he's probably going to be very live for that early finish. Nate tends to get in the pocket and throw down a little bit. I think that Onama should have a little bit more power than he does, a little bit better recoverability. But the problem I have with the big price on Onama is I have seen him get like a little bit wobbled. I thought Gabriel Benitez had him on the ropes. I had a pretty decent position on Gabriel Benitez plus 150, and I thought he had him on the ropes there. So Onama's got a good chin and good recoverability, but he's there to be hit. He hangs his chin in the air, and Nate Landwehr, if you don't put him away, he's a dog, and he will keep throwing all fight and keep swinging and coming forward. So I think that that's an open question at least, but I'm break even on David Onama fight. Shout out my man, Just Win Baby. Last time out, he pointed me in the direction of that Onama by subline against Armfield, and I thought that was a great price at plus 500, on a big favorite there. Guy, everybody was, hyped up on the KO. Again, with Landwehr, people are probably going to be betting that KO pretty heavily, but the inside the distance, I think, is a safer play if you're going to try and back the Onama side, because he just showed off. He has some submission chops. He's willing to go to them. And, against somebody like Nate, he's dog tough. What if he gets hurt real bad and tries to work his way back up to his feet? He locks on that rear naked choke. Are you going to feel good about the fact that you got like 75 cents better, plus money on the KO as opposed to the inside the distance? I just think that's the kind of thing where, you'd be slapping yourself after the fact if it goes the other way. So just ITD, I would prefer to KO if you were to play the Onama side, but I'm probably just going to pass on the co-main event.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that if these guys go toe-to-toe, I just think that Onama is going to steamroll. Just like the striking, obviously he has that Ugandan African power that we've seen time and time again. It's just something to behold. And again, and you guys have all said a lot of great things, but of course, training with James Krause there, we're all obviously very bullish from what he does with his fighters and how he coaches them, mid-fight. It's weird because like earlier in the week, I was like, yep, Onama's just going to put this guy out. He's just going to put him out. And then like when I really dug into Nate's tape, it seems like he's evolved since that first UFC fight. Of course, he had quite a bit of experience on the Russian circuit. So, he's not fighting no slouches, although this is only his 5th UFC fight. I still think that he has a good bit of experience under his belt. And like those brawler type savage guys, like it's really hard to confidently bet on the opponent inside the distance. Like, don't get me wrong. I could envision an Onama, early finish here in the first round, but, Landwehr, I don't think is going to be very easy to put away. Obviously he has been knocked out before. With the Burns fight, I think if anyone eats that knee to the chin, they're going out cold. But, I don't think that's a good depiction of his chin. I think Landwehr is very tough. He's very durable. But again, on the Onama side, man, he's just so powerful. He's continuing to evolve. For what it's worth, Landwehr is on a 10-month layoff. Since then, Onama has fought. This will be his 4th UFC fight over the last 11 months. So he has been busier. And my gut tells me that's going to play dividends in this fight. I just think that he's just he's just born ready for this one. And, it's weird because Onama has this very like nonchalant style. Like there's a reason he's the silent assassin. I don't think that he's this exorbitant, outgoing, loud type of dude. He just goes in there and means business. And I think that's what we're going to see on Saturday evening. I think Onama is going to find a way to put this man out. I have no doubt that he's working the conditioning, working the cardio there at Glory MMA. So if it does go to the 3rd round, I still think that Onama is going to be in there like swimwear, obviously in his 10 professional fights, all inside the distance. So the dude's just natural at that 145. Mind you, when he fought Mason Jones, I believe that was up a weight class. So, since then he's on, the 2-0 run here. So just a way for him to build here and should get a top 15 guy if he dominates here. Matt, any thoughts on, I think I kind of know where you feel with this one, but curious if you had any change of thoughts.
Yes. I mean, I think we're like 1 to 2 fights away from fading David Onama, right? I mean, we kind of see it lately. I mean, I keep lumping these guys together, but Fiallo and Curtis, they get into the UFC, they get 2 good wins, right? They stay hot, they stay taking fights. I mean, this is Onama's 3rd fight in the last 4 months or so. I believe Gabriel Benitez, I think, was in February. The last one was in July. And, this guy's staying busy, staying active. He's going to rack up the finishes. And I might sound a little crazy here, especially, by Nate's what he's known to do. I think that Onama actually has to make this one kind of a brawl. Get Nate out of his comfort zone, let him reach, make mistakes, overreact to things, and that's when you're going to catch him. I think that his last fight against Ludovic Klein, I think that style lended itself in favor of Nate Landwehr because he was actually able to fight composed and, actually be a professional fighter, it looked like in that one, other than a brawler. So I think that if Onama could, frustrate Nate a little bit, get him to overextend on his punches and, try to brawl out, I really think that he could catch him with something. I think that he could take it to the mats too, as you guys mentioned. But, if you guys remember that Herbert Burns fight, I think it was a Darce choke that Herbert Burns had locked in for like 2 or 3 minutes. And Nate was just, laying there chilling, keeping his composure. So he's not an easy guy to submit. I think at minus 135, you're getting a pretty decent price on Onama inside the distance, just going off the fact that all 10 of his wins have been inside the distance. I do wish we got this one in at minus 195 money line where it was sitting last week after sharp money brought the line down from 300 down to 195. I think that was just a play for them to add back at a better price on Onama. So, you're looking at around like the minus 290 point. I wouldn't be surprised if this line gets over minus 300 by the time we see the fight take off. So, I just don't see where Nate could really put Onama in danger. I think Mason Jones, obviously, that situation was the worst situation we'll see Onama in. I don't think that Nate's going to be able to put him in similar spots here. But, Onama, there's something to be said what Liam brought up that, he does get hit a little bit, or maybe it was Dan brought up. He gets hit a little bit, and, he's slow to start until, that opens up. The Gabriel Benitez fight, I think, is a good example because his eye was basically swollen shut by that point. Benitez landed some real damage on him. But Onama, he persevered, he pushed through, and he landed those combos that absolutely just put Benitez to the mat. And funny enough, Benitez on the undercard of this one, his son's taking place early, getting the fight started off. So it's going to be interesting. I think that Onama stays rolling, though. I wouldn't be surprised to see another knockout. I know you mentioned Landwehr is kind of durable. He's eaten 2 flying knee knockouts, both in the UFC. I doubt we see a flying knee here, but, the hands of Onama basically have the same power. So not definitely counting that one out at all.
Hey, side note, just since we're talking about Benitez, Charlie Ontivero season, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
That round 1 prop is definitely live. I'll tell you that much.
No, but yeah, I mean, we'll move on to the next fight. Just last thing on Onama. I mean, I think it seems like the UFC really likes this guy. Seems like they really want to build him up. I think he's got all the tools. I think couple more wins, and we'll start to see him against some stiffer competition. Then we'll really see kind of what he's made of. But he has a super simple game, nothing too flashy. The guy is just a physical freak, right? Kind of like his arms like kind of go down to his feet,
yeah. And he doesn't really try to knock you out with all his punches, right? He's content landing, and I think that's what ultimately leads to success. He
stays within himself, and I like that. It shows maturity, and I think that's only going to improve as he gets more and more comfortable in the octagon.
And Nate, I didn't realize he's on a 10-month layoff. He hasn't fought since October of last year. So it's going to be interesting to see, the contrast between someone who's been off for almost a year and someone who's, in their 3rd fight of this year alone. So definitely favor the activity. Kev, some of your favorite metrics. Onama's the younger guy by about 5 years. He's got the reach advantage. He has the height advantage. So, this has your name written all over it here. He's got the activity as well. So, Onama, definitely the side for me. I believe I could speak for everyone here that we think that he gets the job done. If he does get finished, I don't think any of us will be completely surprised, though, right? I mean, he's still very young. He has a lot of learning to do. But, I think we covered every base there. Before we hop into this main event between Dominic Cruz and Chito Vera, shout out to KOD Media, all the shows they've been running, producing this one especially. So check out their stuff real quick, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back here to discuss this main event between Dominic Cruz versus Chito Vera. This is a fight that, we've been looking forward to. A few contrasting opinions here. Just to get the betting lines out of the way, Chito Vera opened up around minus 190, right? He's currently steamed up to minus 230. Come back on Dom Cruz plus 195. Over-under set at over 4.5 rounds. The over is minus 175. The under is plus 140. I think, common opinion is that Vera gets this one done by knockout or decision. And the Dominic Cruz side, if you think he's going to win, it's most likely going to be by decision here. I'm going to kick this one off to my boy Kev, because he posted earlier in this week that I think he has a 5-unit play on Chito Vera, and I think he locked it in at the early odds of -190 as well.
Yeah, so locked it in at -195. Look, for the record, I have so much respect for Dominic Cruz, man. I mean, come on. Like, he's the first UFC bantamweight champion in the UFC history, right? I mean, he brought the division from the WEC over to the UFC. And he's been a legend of the sport for many, many years. You know, through all the injuries, he's just found a will to find a way. And I have so much respect for the man, right? I mean, the IQ is always on point. You know, he's always there to fight. Of course, the footwork is a thing of beauty. And like, I love the guy. You know, I think he's a good commentator. He's good for the UFC. But this is just one of those things, man, where this is just Marlon Vera's time. I mean, we've seen, you know, we've seen him evolve in front of our eyes, which is crazy. It's his 20th UFC fight, and you know, I'm sure you guys have seen that early tape, and man, the evolution is so evident with Chito, man. You know, for what it's worth, most finishes in UFC bantamweight history with 9. So like the man's the man, right? I mean, he's just there to exert dominance. And you know, we saw in the Rob Font fight, you know, how he's able to continue to build throughout the fight. You know, he just continues to pick it up, that motor. It's just it's a thing of beauty, man. You know, the gas tank is to the T. You know, he's extraordinarily well trained, super hard worker. And again, I just think that this is one of those things, man. Vera, you know, is going to have the 8-year, I believe it's 8-year age difference in this spot. I think that the power shots, the significant strikes are just going to be way more impactful. It was kind of funny. I was looking at the round props for Cruz, and it's like kind of comical. Like I think round 1, it's like well over 20-1 for him to, and then as it progresses, it's wild. But it just shows you that Cruz doesn't really have that power. I mean, he's never really been known for the power. It's more or less the IQ and staying composed, staying wise there. But you know, that Ecuadorian spirit in Vera, man, is just something to behold. I think that he's just gonna get the job done. I respect Cruz. And you know, I heard a lot of the arguments. Well, you know, Cruz is probably going to win the minutes, and you know, that's probably true. You know, Chito isn't really necessarily known to put out a ton of volume, especially off the bat. But it's one of those things, like whether he's winning the minutes or not, it may not matter if Vera knocks him out. So I think that's what we're going to see. I like a 3rd round knockout here by Vera. I've already got the 5 units at -195. Tempted to sprinkle the round 2, 3, and 4 props, but as you guys know, I haven't had the best of luck with those recently, taking these round 1, round 2s, and then the finishes in round 3. Of course, most recently over the weekend. And then what was it in the Sherman fight? I think I as well. I've had the round 1, round 2.
You had rounds 1 and 2. Let me ask you, Kev, is 5 units this your biggest bet?
Yeah.
You started tracking, right? Since the past 4 months.
Correct. Yeah. So the biggest up to date is the Alexander Rakic. At 4, there's like 4 point something units, but yeah, no, this is the biggest play since tracking. I think this is our 14th event tracking. So I'm just confident in the spot, man. I just think that Chito has the tools to get the job done. Again, I respect Cruz. I'm not overlooking what he brings to the table, but I just think that at this age, we're really going to see, I mean, I think we already saw some red flags in his previous 2 fights, but I just think Vera is just going to dominate here. Maybe we'll give him the Dominator nickname after this fight. But yeah, I'm heavy on Vera, guys. I'm heavy on Vera. Really intrigued to hear what Liam has to say. I know Matt, Dan, I got the gist that you guys are probably, well, I know Dan is definitely leaning Vera. I know earlier in the week, Matt was leaning Cruz. So yeah, I'm just really intrigued to hear your guys' thoughts, and you know, should be a dope main event, 100%.
Yeah, Liam, why don't you start us off here?
Sure. So yeah, I think that this is a fascinating fight. You know, I started watching back Dominic Cruz tape, and it brought me back to where I was when I bet these fights. You know, I bet Casey Kenny. I was thinking to myself, you know, no way Dominic Cruz coming back and gonna look, you know, a fraction of himself. I was like, all the surgeries, the injuries, 5-round fights. I just didn't believe in his prospects coming back. I was surprised by that performance. You know, Casey Kenny has had pretty good success so far in the UFC. and like built himself up to that fight. You know, he had been on a bit of a roll, and Dom Cruz halted that momentum. So I had to, you know, take the L there with my man Casey Kenny and move on. And so the next fight, you know, I kind of learned my lesson, right? I did bet on Dom Cruz as an underdog there against Pedro Munoz, and I bet him by decision in that fight as well. So both plus money numbers there, and they both turned out to work out for me. And it wasn't without a sweat, right? We had that moment where Dom Cruz goes down. You have to ask yourself, you know, is that going to be a problem? Is that going to be something where, you know, maybe he can't take the punches, he can't take the damage at this level anymore? But then I think you see the championship heart, the championship adjustments. You know, the fact that he grabs that sit out Peterson and rolls through, and he's just like holding on to the wrist, regathering himself, comes out in the scramble on top and then throwing punches. You know, I think people have a little bit of they're judging with too harsh of standards. Like Dom Cruz isn't getting takedowns in his last couple fights. Yeah, Casey Kenny's a judo black belt who it's not easy to take him down. He's physically strong. He's a big bantamweight. And then Pedro Munoz, it's like, do you want to take that guy down? He's got the nastiest guillotine in the bantamweight division. Who's taking him down and like wrote out time up? Like somebody get back to me there. Frankie Edgar danced around him and outboxed him because he didn't want to try and take this guy down. It's like no one wants to take down Pedro Munoz. So I think that Chito Vera's a whole different ballgame, right? Chito can get taken down. He has been taken down. But Dom isn't a guy who perennially, you know, takes people down and lays on top of them or something. So it's going to have to be a pretty, you know, well thought out, strategic, tactical battle if Dominic Cruz is going to win. If it turns into a fight, that's when Chito Vera wins the fight. You know, it's like Chito is a dangerous guy. I talk about a lot. I like to find guys who are dangerous. I like to find guys who could win the fight, who could stop the fight, who could finish the fight. But I will also say, you know, Chito Vera has been hit with some clean shots in basically every fight. You know, Dominic Cruz, he mostly doesn't get hit cleanly. When he does get hit cleanly, it's mattered, right? Pedro Munoz hit him cleanly, dropped him bad. Cody Garbrandt hit him cleanly, dropped him bad. But, you know, those are a few examples. Like the guy's been outstruck numerically twice in his career. You know, on the numbers, he's only been outstruck numerically 2 times. And for me, that's interesting. It's revelatory. You know, Chito's been outstruck in many of his wins. You know, the guy is just a powerful hitter and he does impactful damage when he lands. So I think that Chito, if he wants to win the fight, he's either going to have to find a finish or he's going to have to take over the fight as it goes. He's going to have to add up, work over time. He's going to have to land things like leg kicks, body work to try and slow down Cruz. Because I do think that at distance, you know, Cruz is going to be a little bit faster, even at this age, in my opinion. I think he's a little bit more dynamic with his mixed martial arts in the sense that he will mix in the takedown attempts much more often. They actually complete takedowns at a similar rate in terms of accuracy, but one guy attempts them all the time and one guy virtually never does. And so I think that for those reasons, you know, I would be looking more towards a dog shot or a live entry on the Chito Vera side. I do think you're going to get a better price on him after a round or two. I think that, you know, Dom Cruz in most of his fights doesn't look like a plus 200 underdog. That's the truth. But it's 5 rounds. And 5 rounds is a long time to be out there with somebody. That's a long time to not get hit. You know, Frankie Edgar, I thought was doing a great job. But at the 12-minute mark, he's starting to slow down. He's the older fighter. Chito's just getting started. It was a disaster for Frankie. And like, it was a matter of time kind of stoppage where he lands the kick, but what if he had landed, you know, 5 punches? You know, Frankie was just not in a good spot to defend there. And I think that that same thing could happen here. You know, people get old overnight. It's a bantamweight division. So I'm not, I haven't made any bets on the fight yet, but I did think to myself, you know, I don't want to get caught with my pants down, you know, laying a lot of chalk against Dominic Cruz. And then he does the dance and he moves around, and he makes people miss, and he mixes in takedowns that only last for 10 seconds, but he wins the round. He's a very vet savvy kind of guy. And for me, the determination, you know, the dedication, everything he's done to get back to this point, most guys don't beat a Casey Kenny on the comeback tour. You know, most guys just wash out at that stage. And for him to get to this point where he's back in 5-round fights, back at the top of the bill, looking for an opportunity. You know, if one guy could do it at the bantamweight division and get back to that title opportunity, I do think it is Dom Cruz. And I think that Chito Vera, he's still young. He's still developing. You know, it's like the guy's had 19, 20 fights in the UFC, but he's still on a development course. He still could get better. Whereas Dom Cruz, it's shit or get off the pot. You know, it's like he's basically said in his interviews, like, if I lose this fight, you know, who knows what I'm going to do next? Because, like, I'm here for the title. That's it. So I think that for Dom Cruz, he's all in. I think that for Chito Vera, this is another big opportunity for him, but it wasn't a fight without issue against Rob Font last time out, and Rob Font never sniffed the level of a Dom Cruz with love and respect. So I think that it's a hell of a fight. It's a great matchup, and I'm just excited to see how it plays out, man.
Yeah, great fight, and great takes from both you guys. I think, a couple of things. I think betting Cheeto live is actually a great approach to this fight, because I do think after round one, maybe round two, we'll get a much better line. The thing about Vera is that he is a bit of a slow starter. He's most of his fights in recent history, he's lost that first round, in some cases even the second, right? I had bet Frankie against Cheeto, and what a butt punch that fight was for me. It was like,
I had the same bet too.
Oh man, like he was doing good just until he wasn't, and you kind of saw the writing on the wall as the fight progressed. And that's the thing that's so dangerous about Cheeto, is that yes, he's a bit of a slow starter, but once he downloads that data and he gets his timing going, the guy just puts the pedal to the metal, and then he just starts to crush. And I think one piece of this fight that's being a little bit overlooked is the kicking game of Cheeto Vera. It's drastically improved. We saw him hit Rob Font with some nice kicks. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting that, truth be told, from him. But we saw in the Cejudo fight that if you can mess with Cruz's mobility, that really messes up his game, right? His whole game is all footwork, right? So I think if we can see Vera start to chop down, land some calf kicks early on in the fight. I say that Vera's a slow starter, but look, in the last couple fights, Cruz hasn't really hasn't looked good in the first round either, right? He almost lost in that first round against Munoz. Casey Kenya, right? That was a close one. So, I think 5-6 years ago, I think Cruz kind of steamrolls Cheeto here. A little bit older. I think he still has good footwork. I don't think he's as quick as he was at one point, but still very effective. Still, there are very few guys in this division that are going to be able to hold a candle to Cruz, especially even at this point in his career. But Cheeto, again, I like to look at not just the physical attributes, but the mental side of things. Both guys very, very mentally tough. Cheeto, man, this guy is just laser focused, and I love what he's doing with Jason Perillo. Like seeing kind of his training regimen over the last few months, on social media, clearly putting in the work. You were seeing what he was saying in media day yesterday. He expects nothing less. This is the kind of guy that when he's stepping in, he's done everything that he can to prep himself. So no doubt that I think he's going to be ready for a 5-round war. And I think if this goes 3 rounds, I probably lean Cruz, truth be told, just because the fight IQ. I think he can adjust, and 3 rounds tends to cater a little bit better towards older fighters, especially at the lighter weight class. But 5 rounds, man, I think we see first couple rounds be very competitive, but I think the longer this fight goes, we see Cheeto start to take over, and a finish might be tough. I'm probably leaning Vera by decision here. Right now, my only play on this, I've got Cheeto in a couple parlays, but I'll probably be live betting Cheeto here. I really want to see if he's going to implement like a strong leg kicking game. It's I really think that Cejudo kind of laid the blueprint on how you attack someone with Cruz's style. So be interesting to see his approach here.
Yeah, I have so many contrasting opinions when it comes to this fight. You guys both know early on I was, trying to defend Dominic Cruz in this position here, and that was back when he was, much less of an underdog than he is currently at plus 195. And I just struggle with a lot of, all these takes going on in my head. The first one overall is the age difference, right? Cheeto Vera, obviously in the prime of his career. Dom Cruz, you could say he's over the hill, right? A little bit, but that's usually a metric that's pretty accurate when it comes to looking at these fights, right? Especially in the bantamweight division. But then when you break it down, I do think that Cheeto's going to struggle, landing those leg kicks due to the mobility of Dom Cruz and just the different angles that he's able to come at and get away from. I mentioned that, Pedro Munoz only landed 19 leg kicks in 3 rounds against Dominic Cruz, and we all know that's a big part of his game. I mean, he usually lands like 40 to 50 leg kicks per fight, so you just seeing the drop-off in numbers there, you could tell how difficult it is to implement those kicks against someone like Dom Cruz. And, Liam did mention Dom Cruz, he got dropped a few times in that first round against Pedro Munoz his last time out. So it's a little bit scary. And you got to wonder, can he take that kind of damage over 5 rounds against Cheeto? The answer is no. Like, he definitely still has a chin on him, but to take that over a course of 25 minutes at this point in his career, I don't see that happening, right? And I think that anyone not named Rob Font, for the most part, gets knocked out in that last fight versus Chito Vera, because Rob Font's a very durable guy. I mean, we saw him against Jose Aldo. The fact that he survived to the bell there, that was impressive enough. He comes out his next time out, and he survives all those onslaughts from Chito Vera. So, you got to give credit to Rob Font's durability and chin there, because I think most bantamweights crumble under that pressure and power from that ground and pound that Chito was landing. But I really struggle because Dominic Cruz, he's shown us that he's still fighting, and he's still fighting at a high level. I mean, we saw Pedro Munoz is no slouch, right? I mean, he just won. Whether you agree with it or not, he took off the first round from Sean O'Malley, one of the biggest prospects coming up in that division. And, Chito does have a win over Sean O'Malley, but I keep thinking back to the Frankie Edgar fight, right? Even the Rob Font fight a little bit. It's just Chito's losing these minutes, and if it wasn't for, you can't call it a fluke head kick because, he planned it, he landed it, he got the knockout win with the head kick. If it weren't for that, I think he loses that fight, right? I think the scorecards were in Frankie's favor at that point. I think the third round was up for grabs. And then you look at Rob Font, right? I mean, I think Rob Font landed like 400 strikes against Chito Vera. And I guess we lost Liam. He's only in with sound only right now. But, you look at Chito, right? And he's just he's losing these minutes, and if he can't put out Dom Cruz or land damage, which I think is going to be hard to do due to the mobility of Dom Cruz, I find, a path to victory kind of difficult to back on the Cheeto side, right? Because if he's not able to land those big blows, how else is he winning this fight? And, we mentioned it before, Dan, you said that Dom Cruz has pillows for hands, but he has such a frustrating style because, like I mentioned, first of all, he's hard to hit. Second of all, he's going to game plan better than you, and his fight IQ is amongst the highest of all active UFC fighters and all UFC fighters of all time. And he knows that, Chito Vera is kind of a hothead. I think that if Chito's not able to find success early, he can start reaching for some stuff, and Dom's going to be able to punish him in ways, not typical with power, but just his activity. He gets in your face. I think I mentioned it to you guys the other day. I think in his fight against Pedro Munoz, Dom Cruz landed like 271 total strikes. And you look at the total numbers for Chito Vera in a 5-rounder versus Rob Font, he landed around 299. So when you're dealing with that, sort of activity in your face, if he could extend that over a 5-round period, that's going to frustrate Chito Vera. And I really struggle to see him getting those power shots off. But we saw Munoz do damage to Dom Cruz the last time out. So that worries me a little bit on the Dom Cruz side. So I'm kind of going back and forth here. I definitely will not take Chito Vera at minus 240. I can tell you that much. Just a matter of if I'm willing to take the dog here at plus 200. And I keep reverting back to his last fight versus Rob Font, right? I can't sit here and tell you Rob Font's a better fighter than Dom Cruz at this current point right now in time. And, Chito Vera was plus 100 in that fight, and I didn't bet him there. Majority of people didn't bet Chito at plus 100 there, but now they're all running to the counter now to take him at minus 240. It's kind of a head scratch. I don't know if it's a slight on Dom Cruz that they're doing this and his age at 37 years old, or if they really think that this matchup just caters itself well to Chito. So for that reason, I definitely can't place a bet on Chito in this spot, especially not at minus 240 when I wouldn't take him at plus 100, just one fight to go in a 5-rounder.
Yeah, one thing I just want
I took him there, I will say. Sorry about that. I thought that was a good plus money spot, but now you're being asked to lay 70%.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to back him at minus 240 if you didn't take him at plus 100 there, right? So that's where it kind of comes in. You're going to see like 80% of bets come in on Chito Vera this week, when I think like 45 came in on him last time out at even money. So just for that reason, these books are pretty smart. They know what they're doing. They know where the money's going to come in at regardless of the line. So definitely not going to back Chito, like I mentioned. It's just a matter of if I'm willing to, grow the cojones and take Dom Cruz at plus 200.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to point out about Cruz, just about his career, especially like, his career in the WC. I mean, obviously, once they created that division in the UFC, we saw all those guys come over. But, in the WC, the guy was smashing. But the thing about it is that a lot of the guys that you see him beat, Demetrius Johnson, Faber, Benavidez. I mean, these are all small guys. There's compared to a guy like Cheeto, right? I think that's going to play a little, that's going to play a factor here. Whereas, you got a guy, similar size that I think Cruz has been able to, make a career out of using his footwork and his reach. And I don't think that the reach isn't going to be as profound here. And that's why I think I really like the physicality aspect that Cheeto brings to the table here. I think that Dom, if he doesn't dance around you and you rough him up, I mean, credit to him. And the guy can throw down, right? Even when he's getting clipped, we saw on the Garbrandt front, got shot multiple times. Mentally tough guy, he'll be there. But I think that's the kind of fight that I want. That's the kind of fight that I think Cheeto excels in. And I don't think he'll be able to bully him. I think Cheeto's going to come in there. He's going to have, the same gas tank in minute 1 as minute 25. We know he's going to be there. So, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I think that Cruz has, throughout most of his career, he's fought guys that maybe weren't at the right weight class, especially in the WC days. And lately, what we've been seeing him having a little bit more trouble against, true 135 pounders. So, but yeah, I mean, great main event. I mean, it's for sure going to be a banger, and it's Cheeto Vera season, baby.
I'm with you, man. And for the record, I'm also with you in the sense of if this is a 3-round fight, I'm taking Cruz at these odds. I just think that that additional 10 minutes is when, if we see that, is when Vera is really going to pour it on. And again, like you guys have said a lot of great thoughts, and I think with those leg kicks, if he can land those leg kicks early. And just kind of immobilize that movement of Dom Cruz here. Again, we're just going to see Cheeto pour it on, and that's kind of how I envision this fight. Again, I have so much respect for Cruz, but again, it's Vera's time. It's kind of funny because Vera is the Latino commentator, and then Cruz is the American commentator for the UFC. So the battle of the commentators, it's
for sure.
And I just envision this weird thought that potentially if Vera knocks him out, just out hustles Dom Cruz from top to bottom, that, we could see Dom Cruz, take off the gloves and wrap up a career. There's just no reason to push anything. And obviously being, in that commentator booth, you don't want to make too much of an embarrassment of yourself. So, again, most respect to Dom Cruz. Love the guy, but I just feel really good about about Vera's intensity and what he brings to the table. But, and then I just want to tail that off by, again, thanking Liam so much for joining the show. Of course, for finishing up here. There is no secret that you're one of the pioneers on MMA Twitter, and, just kind of what you bring and the research and all that good jazz. So we really appreciate your time, and hopefully this won't be the last.
Absolutely, man. Had a blast. Always down to talk fights, and let me know anytime you need me. Happy to come back on and talk about them again.
Of course. And Liam, before we have you leave here, make sure to plug your socials. Tell us where to find you on Twitter, all your links, Action Network, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. So, you can find me on RotoGrinders, scoresandodds.com, OddsJam, and also newly on the Action Network. So writing Dana White Contender Series previews for them. Excited about that. And it's always the same process for me, right back to work. I do my own show as well. Liam Picks Fights every week. Be recording that later today when my full research is done. You guys can check me out everywhere at Liam Picks Fights. Always talking about fights or getting in them. So we'll see you guys in the future, but I'm excited to see what you guys are doing. Great production values, and you guys sound like you really know what you're talking about when it comes to the fight. So truly wish you nothing but the best and all the success in the world.
Hey, Liam, last question. What does Bo Nickel open up as in his next Contender Series fight?
Minus 1,000 or above, and he closes minus 4,000 or above. The guy is an absolute stud, and I'm not trying to say like, oh, I called Bo Nick. I'm just saying he's not like most American wrestlers where he comes in with a wrestling background. He has the jiu-jitsu. I've seen him go against competent black belts, look good off his back in the guard as well as on the feet. And I think that in terms of his competitive spirit, like ice in his veins, supreme competitor, is going to be a real problem for everybody. I think he'd be a favorite over most UFC middleweights.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was paying like minus 10,000. He was expecting minus 10,000, and anything anything under that is a steal. I saw him like chirping in the comments of like I think it was like an MMA junkie post, chirping at people like, "Hey man, it's free money. Like brokies don't want to throw your money down, man. It's free." I love that. The guy is the guy is definitely going to go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it the other day to you guys. I think Bo Nickel, and I say this, not trying to cause a hot take. I think he has the highest ceiling of any UFC fighter on the roster. I think that his ceiling goes to a place where others just don't, just based off his, his credentials and everything. I can't speak highly enough on Bo Nickel.
Totally.
But
I'm with you.
all right, guys. Thank you again. Hope you guys enjoyed the UFC San Diego breakdown. Kev, thank you. Dan, thank you. Liam, thank you again. Make sure you tune into our Twitter spaces this Saturday at 11 a.m. Liam, if you're free, I'd love you to hop by there at fight night. We'll be breaking it down prelim to main event once again. So, guys, make sure you join in there, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.